Welcome to Thread by Thread, where we unravel the stories that connect people, economies, and people across the world. I'm Dheeraj Kumar. Today, I decided instead of a monologue, we are shaking things up with a dialogue. I am joined by someone whose background might surprise you. He's pursuing a master's in hydroscience engineering, also specializing in mathematical flood risk prediction. But the important thing is that outside the numbers and hydrodynamic models, he's deeply curious about economics and geopolitics. So, in this episode, we'll flow freely like water, talking about issues that have been recently relevant. So, Robin, welcome to Thread by Thread.
Thank you for having me.
So I get curious, like why are you interested? I know we met 2 years ago in a geopolitical conference, but what moved you to these kind of issues? Why are you so interested in economics and geopolitics?
It was very funny because people always like to connect that these are not the same topics. But as we know, and I was unpacking, I realized that how strategic diplomacy and these things are interconnected,
Hmm.
woven thread by thread, even though how much we consider it to be a topic afar, but it's very interconnected.
Yeah, absolutely. And uh, listeners may know that we both come from India. And in India, it's like people do talk about politics a lot, and they think world's politics is their own domestic politics. Now, recently, there have been so many things going on in the world, three and a half wars. Um, and other crises like tariff wars and economic shifting, what we call globalization. So, how do you see these things for your future? I know you are young, you are just studying, and but what do you think will future look like?
Well, the future is very strategically designed because, as I am seeing it in my eyes, it's very volatile. Uh,
Hmm.
because flood risk and water is something we always tend to ignore. But
Yeah.
that's something what's in my mind is today, maybe we are fighting for artificial intelligence. Maybe we will tomorrow fight for land. And maybe the end of the week we are going to fight for data. But what I
Hmm.
believe strongly is the next month, in a
Hmm.
very hypothetical way, we are going to fight for water because the fresh water is actually decreasing in a staggering way. Our dependency on
Hmm.
fast fashions and the strategic designs of brands which are making it in countries like Bangladesh, where they do not have
Yeah.
very environmental friendly policies of making those products of cheap and fast fashion. They make it in a
Yeah.
way that the dyes are not very good for the water, and either way the entire basin is getting strategically bad, and it's infiltrated in such a way that it's actually touching the groundwater at some point.
Mm. But Bangladesh, I get curious about because they don't have an industry. So if they don't make those garments and export to the world, then we will be worse off. Don't you think? Like we will be having expensive clothes to buy in Europe or in North America and other parts of the world, and Bangladeshis won't have anything to sell to the world. I get the risk of using lots of water and polluting the sea or even dispersing themselves into water in the future. But don't you think right now they have a bigger challenge of feeding the population?
Yes, you're right. But it also comes to the way we do it. It's not that uh, that is the only way to do things. We
Mm.
let us not just pinpoint Bangladesh, but as we are doing in the entire global way,
Yeah.
we still have a lot of technologies to use natural dyes. We have technologies to use less water for our
I agree.
use of our
Yeah.
clothes and things. But the thing is,
Mm.
the big the big clothing brands and the big players like Inditex, who play with major brands like Massimo Dutti or Zara, not to name
Hmm.
them specifically, but they rely heavily because their scaling margins are very high, and they don't pay in a very handsome way to the Bangladeshi people, and they don't care the way it's designed, and the only matter is that if they get a
Hmm.
good span of money uh, and the way
Yeah.
it's cheap
Profits.
as
Yeah.
possible. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. The social responsibility aspect of companies need to have a relook. Like companies right now, they do less than what they show to the people that they are doing, which is, I don't know, it's very hypocritical on their part. But anyways, so you said water is very crucial for future wars. There could be many wars that can be triggered not because of land, but because of water politics. And recently we saw, initially I didn't want to talk about India per se, but now we see a treaty, around 75 years old treaty being held in abrogation because of the recent terrorist attack in in Jammu and Kashmir. So, do you think these treaties in long run will be useful for any country, not just India, Pakistan, or India, China? Do you think people will come on the same page when it comes to agreeing on having water as a resource?
Yes, I would think that it has something to be thought upon because even though the Indus Water Treaty has been broken right now, but uh, even if considering mathematically if it was there or wasn't there, it was brokered in I believe 1960 with World Bank support, and it remains as
Hmm.
one of the few enduring examples of transboundary water cooperation between some of the lands. And as you know, as the flood risk increases due to the Himalayan glacier melt and the monsoon variability, we cannot always blame it for El Nino or other reasons, but it's a bag of different reasons and examples. But as it's increasing, the flood risk always increases because the Himalayan glacier is melting at a very staggering point, and the monsoon variability in southeast region has changed decade per
Hmm.
decade, and it's going very harsh. And both the nations have begun to rely heavily on not just both, but let's say the entire region have heavily designed
Yeah.
for they're relying for the mathematical flood prediction systems to monitor the river
Hmm.
flows and avert any humanitarian crises. But as we know that this is something very strategic and it's still
Hmm.
happening in either way. And this reminds us to the point that hydrological data becomes not just a resource but a diplomatic asset. Because during severe floods, shared early warning systems and data exchanges serve as a rare avenue for dialogue. And
Hmm.
despite broader political tensions, management of flood risk has morphed into a quiet but essential component of the regional diplomacy. And so it even if we try to ignore it, it actually works in a very diplomatic way.
Hmm. So I don't really get how it works in real life. Like, can you explain to us, like you studied the topic in layman's terms? I mean, do countries share data between each other and then they figure out this flood risk planning? How does it actually work?
So this is something that it's a game of data. So even if we ignore South Asia, we can calculate for different region based. For example, uh,
Hmm.
the game is for data. If we calculate in Southeast Asia, it's the Mekong River Basin.
Yeah.
It's playing the big games, right? So it includes six players like China, Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. So if we don't just see it as one river, we have to see
Hmm.
it in a way that it actually is supporting 60 million people and
Hmm.
the region's agriculture economy. Countries like Laos are and Vietnam are fighting heavily for their regional agricultural economy. Now, in these claims, now something like that. Second, uh, if, second terminology, if we consider, is the hydrological forecasting and flood modeling. They were using
Yeah.
it for local disaster preparedness. But now they are entangled in complex regional geopolitics. Why? Because as we see, it's in upstream developments. Geography plays a game, but geopolitics doesn't. Especially China started to make a dam operations, which will influence the downstream flow of the water because they want to have a big show in the South China Sea. And during
Mm,
the dry seasons, what happens is they withhold the water and can exacerbate drought in lower Mekong countries. So what happens in non-monsoon regions, they have just a
mm,
land where they cannot use their boats. But when there's monsoon, the intense flooding, we call it flash flooding in the region because Mekong is a river which is
mm,
very good in a monsoon period. They have to use boats. It's designed in a way, and the entire region. But then what happens is here the mathematical models allow downstream countries to assess the risks and negotiate the data sharing agreements with China. But while cooperation frameworks such as the Mekong River Commission uh, aim to foster transparency and control of the
mm,
water data, but as we see, it always remains a soft power. The one who doesn't share the data. If one of
yeah.
the parties says, we are not going to share this data to the south, to the lower stream, we're not going to play it. Similarly, as I said, for the Indus Water Treaty for India and Pakistan or South Asian regions, it's also playing
Mm,
a big games in regions like Europe. The Rhine River represents another case where hydrological science and intersects with continental economics. Europe has very nice commercial relationships. We know that. And this Rhine River, it's beautiful river. We love to
mm,
visit there. But the place is,
yeah.
it supports
Mm,
trade and transport across a lot of countries. For example, did you know Switzerland heavily relies on Rhine River because Switzerland is landlocked? Water. They don't have the problem of uh,
uh-huh.
drinking water. It's for trade, so they can use the
Ah, for
boats and
shipping.
things. Yes,
For shipping.
yes,
Okay. Uh-huh.
yes.
Right.
And it connects to multiple regions. So what helps is that they can have a commercial movement across the
Mm,
Rhine, and that helps
mm,
Switzerland greatly, because if Germany says no, what is Switzerland going to do? You have to use trucks and they have to cross the Alps, and we know it how much big of a game that is, and we all know what
yeah.
Alps has done in
Yeah.
the historically to cross
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It is a total different story. But the point
Yeah.
is,
That.
uh, Ryan has
Mhm,
also played, and it also just not Switzerland, but it also plays a very different trade games between Germany, France, Switzerland, and also the Netherlands. Even if we don't agree, the thing is the disruptions caused by flooding or drought, like the severe
mm,
low water levels it caused in 2018, have immediate
mm,
consequences for industry and fuel transport. Now, what
mm,
happens is what the game is that at these times, when everything is gone wrong, we need mathematical models. Today,
yeah.
everybody's talking about the big data and everybody's want to talk about machine learning models because they want to go there. Oh, this is new. It sounds good. But people forget that machine learning and artificial intelligence works on algorithms, and
Mm,
algorithms are made by mathematical equations.
yeah.
Somebody
Sounds
has
like
to,
yeah.
yeah.
Definitely sounds like a prisoner's dilemma in economics, where if you don't play what the other prisoner wants you to play like, then you both lose, like a lose-lose situation. So if China doesn't share data with India, then ultimately in long run they will lose as well. And but also I realized that these conflicts are now on different continents. Asia has Mekong, as well as our own Himalayan rivers, and Europe. Europe may not have some problems, but in Africa we have the case of Nile, the longest river in the world, where I think three or four countries are conflicting of what the other country has rights to do with it. Do you have any idea about Nile and Egypt and Ethiopia and Sudan, all these countries? What's the issue about?
Yes, Africa is actually a very big topic, and we can write in a whole report of.
Yeah, because it has been the most water affected, like water deficient continent in the world. So when we think about water, the first thing that comes to my mind, at least, is Africa, people looking for water. Yeah, continue.
Yes, yes, I agree. Africa is something they have, they try hard for such regions, but they have different reasons for not getting a successful answer. But we have to overlook in a way that something is going on. Let's go in, and I would say it in a way that just like Europe has a European flood awareness system like EFAS, which exemplifies the things for our local games, they don't have a unified area or unified commission in Africa where they can do it. But we cannot overlook the global developmental policies they are doing in African continents, where we cannot just speak about Nile, where we also have uh, the rivers are also affecting in a very bigger areas like Congo and
Yeah.
Nigeria are lifelines for millions and is witnessing a surge in flood prediction initiatives which are actually supported from the multilateral agencies. Now,
Mm.
let me give an example. The Nile
Yeah.
Basin Initiative involving countries from Egypt to Uganda, it actually leverages hydrological models to balance upstream and downstream needs.
Mm.
Egypt,
Right.
with its reliance on its Nile for over 90% of its fresh water, views flood and drought data not just as a environmental information, but as an existential intelligence. If Egypt loses Nile, Egypt is
Mm.
dead.
Yeah.
And this is something how intense we are talking, that how important these data are. And even
Mm.
if we talk across sub-Saharan Africa, the mathematical models are increasingly deployed to bridge the gap between meteorological forecast, and it also subtly connects to humanitarian response. Sub-Saharan Africa, in
Mm.
Mozambique, for example, the after the devastating floods of cyclones Idai and Kenneth in 2019, early warning systems powered by predictive models were expanded in partnership with the World Bank and local governments. And they love to do this as these models integrate rainfall data and river
Mm.
basin monitoring and topographical analysis. Why? Because it actually identifies the risk communities days in advance, and it helps them to pre-position, because World Bank is also in good contact with UN, and they can help them with the pre-positioning of the emergency supplies and timely evacuations. They also played a very good game in West. Let's not. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase the word game. It should be projects, because
Mm.
in West Africa, initiatives like West African flood and drought management, these projects are actually supported by ECOWAS, and African Union are using probabilistic
Mm.
flood tools in
Mm.
in a very nice way.
Apart from that, like, let's shift from water to something else. Like, I mean, we are staying with water, but do you see some refugees coming from these countries? Like, I see Bangladesh will submerge after some times, and maybe Jakarta in Indonesia will be underwater, and some cities in Europe will also be. While on the other hand, you see Netherlands was underwater, but there are no predictions of it being underwater in 50 years or 100 years. So don't you see there's this mismatch of resources that are available for certain countries that can afford to stay afloat, while the other countries, maybe not rich, maybe not on center of the world's politics, they will be refugees in a sense very soon. What do you think?
Hmm. Are you trying to rephrase that Netherlands will not get sink, but other cities will get sink in the same game?
I am trying to say, like, Netherlands can stay afloat even if it costs billions of dollars or euros.
Hmm.
But on the other hand, Seychelles or countries like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and others, cannot pay that much, and they will have to relocate themselves. I think Maldives will totally be down, totally be gone in some of the years. Although India Maldives relations are also going with ups and downs, but we definitely want all our neighbors to be in good health and have a prosperous future. What do you think?
Yes, I agree. Because first of all, we have to not forget that Netherlands is a part of European Union, even if we try to decline it. But Netherlands is actually has some really good friends. Netherlands has invested heavily in good friends, good commercial economies, and
Yeah,
uh,
more than that, they invested in good dike technologies. They have good technologies to like manage water. I mean, they have been surrounded by water, but they can have a good drainage system to continuously live. Although sea levels are rising, there is climate change. I don't know, people may deny it, but there's climate change. Netherlands should have been underwater for a long time ago, but it's the politics, it's the technology, and it's the resources that has kept Netherlands afloat. Yeah.
so the case of Netherlands is very different because
Mm.
the to consider the country is third of its land lies below sea level. And
Yeah.
we have to start with their history. Dutch started early in their in Middle Ages to to sail towards different countries, and they had a lot of experience with different types of people and how what to do. And they learned something very early when they used to have a lot of colonies, and they learned something, and that is they knew that Netherlands will need smart people, and if they do not do it
Mm.
fast, they do
Yeah.
not have any something to give to the world. They don't have land, they don't have a lot of
Mm.
money, they don't have anything special or special in their land like ore
Mm.
or any special minerals. So what they
Yeah,
did
there's
games that they strategically designed it in a world where leading institutions, for example, they started strategic investments in world leading hydroscience institutions such as deltars and engineering marvels like
Mm.
Menslandkering. I'm sorry for the
Mm.
pronunciation, but it's my Dutch is not good. These
Mm.
storm surge barriers were very special, and the Netherlands has become an exporter of this climate resilience expertise. When
Yeah.
you understand what our tomorrow is going to be, when you
Uh-huh.
understand what how everything is playing, and you do games accordingly, if it's very simple. Today we are not hungry because we have food, but if we are trying to buy food for next year, so we
Yeah.
don't care if next year there is a drought or we don't have food, you can sell your food for a price you like. And that's how they designed
Mm.
it, everything. The Dutch flood modeling systems and urban water strategies are now consulted by cities from Jakarta to New York. That is something very credible. And they used it, they knew, for example, if they have something, they sell it, that they don't have something. The game is over. Like Japan, they used after the post-war, they used big players like Sony to start their technological revolution. But once
Mm.
it's over, it's over. What's next? It's
Mm.
very something, and that's where Netherlands played a very nice. They use their scientific credibility as their diplomatic currency. Now, what happens is it hosts their international water summits and leads dialogues on climate adaptations. And it also contributes heavily to global water governance frameworks. And their geopolitical strategy have changed. It's not built on force, but on foresight, soft power, and engineering diplomacy. Well, what happens, as you asked me earlier, is it actually contrasts with sharply with
Mm.
low-lying developing nations like Seychelles, Tuvalu, or Kiribati, because because which also face existential crisis from sea level rise, but they lack the same political leverage or financial
Yeah.
capability. Now, what
Yes.
happens is,
Also, I will jump in there.
hmm,
Also, I think it's the markets that work, because the first stock market in the world was in Netherlands, and Netherlands has have lots of banking reforms that were the birth birthplace of these things for the whole world. They have started stocks, they had started lending and everything else, and because of that, I think they benefited in research as well. Well, with that, I learned a lot today about the water system, and what you study, Robin, is very crucial for the world. I mean, people may think that it's just some sort of science that nobody studies, but ultimately it is part of our life, and it all ends up affecting us. So thank you very much. It was nice talking with you, and we really learned a lot from your perspectives that you brought from your scientific experience that you have had in, I think you are studying in TU Dresden.
Yes, I agree. It was a
Yeah.
really nice time because I also get to have this platform where I share my thoughts with you, and you're also
Mhm.
doing very good. So just really compliments to you on it.
Thank you. Thank you, Robin. Take care of yourself, and yeah, looking forward to have more conversations with you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Looking forward to.